Imagine yourself in ancient Rome, where men fought for their lives in arenas packed with spectators eager for blood and glory. These men, known as gladiators, were not just ordinary fighters. They were slaves, prisoners of war, or even volunteers who underwent brutal training and faced death in every battle. In a world where life could be as fleeting as the spectacle they provided, these warriors became legends. But what really happened behind the scenes of the arena? What was the life of these men who became heroes and martyrs of one of history's greatest empires? In this video, we will explore the life of Roman gladiators, from their grueling training and epic fights to the complex culture that surrounded them in the Roman arenas. Get ready to uncover stories of courage, endurance, and survival that defied the laws of the empire and captured the imagination of generations. Let's dive deep into the life and struggle of gladiators and understand how these men turned the arena into their stage of glory and tragedy. Origins of gladiators: slaves, prisoners, and volunteers. Imagine yourself in ancient Rome, where arenas buzzed with excitement and the crowd clamored for blood. The gladiators, the stars of this deadly spectacle, came from diverse backgrounds. Many were slaves, captured from distant lands and brought to Rome as war prisoners. The harsh reality of being sold as property turned these men into warriors with no choice, destined to entertain the public with their lives. In addition to slaves, prisoners of war were also a common source of gladiators. After conquering new territories, Rome captured enemy fighters, many of whom were forced to fight in the arenas. These men, who once defended their homelands, now faced an unending struggle for survival, fighting a new battle on foreign soil. Interestingly, not all gladiators were forced into the arena. Some free men, drawn by the promise of fame, fortune, or simply the thrill of adventure, voluntarily signed up for the life of a gladiator. Though rare, this phenomenon highlighted the complex allure that life in the arena held for certain individuals, willing to risk everything for a glimpse of glory. Choosing to become a gladiator voluntarily could also be seen as a form of protest or rebellion against Roman society. In a world where hierarchy and social classes were rigidly defined, becoming a gladiator offered a way to escape these constraints, allowing ordinary men to achieve notoriety and respect through their combat skills. Gladiators were viewed ambivalently by Roman society. Although they were admired for their courage and skill, they were also considered figures of low moral standing, often marginalized by the elite. This paradox fueled the public's fascination with gladiators, who became tragic heroes, celebrated for their bravery but scorned for their origins and status. Ultimately, the diverse origins of gladiators contributed to the rich cultural tapestry of the Roman arenas. Each combat was a confluence of personal stories, cultures, and traditions, transforming the arena into a microcosm of the vast diversity of the Roman Empire. Thus, gladiators, in all their complexity, embodied the combative and resilient spirit of Rome. The ludus: brutal training and preparation for the arena. The training of gladiators was rigorous and unrelenting, conducted in schools called ludus. These training centers, run by a lanista, were true combat factories where men were shaped into war machines. Each ludus had its own rules and techniques, but the common goal was always the same: to prepare gladiators for the brutal reality of the arenas. Days at the ludus began early and were filled with intense physical exercises. Gladiators underwent training regimens that included running, weightlifting, and combat simulations. Physical endurance was crucial, as each fight in the arena required an extraordinary level of physical and mental preparation. Additionally, the diet of the gladiators was carefully controlled to maximize their strength and stamina. Beyond physical conditioning, training included instruction in various weapons and fighting styles. Gladiators were categorized into different classes, such as Murmillo, Thraex, and Retiarius, each with its own weaponry and techniques. Learning to wield these weapons with precision and efficiency was crucial, as a mistake in the heat of battle could mean the difference between life and death. The trainers, many of whom were retired gladiators, played a vital role in developing new fighters. They taught not only fighting techniques but also survival tactics and how to use the arena terrain to their advantage. The accumulated experience of these veterans was invaluable, giving new gladiators a chance to learn from the best. Discipline at the ludus was extremely strict. Disobedience or failure to meet the required standards resulted in severe punishments. This atmosphere of absolute control and constant fear aimed to toughen the gladiators, preparing them for the relentless pressure of the arenas. However, this discipline also fostered a strong sense of camaraderie among the gladiators, who relied on each other to survive. Ultimately, the ludus was not just a place of training but also a community. Gladiators formed close bonds with their peers, sharing the same grueling journey and dangers. These bonds were essential, as a gladiator's life was a constant struggle, not only against opponents in the arena but also against the system that enslaved them. Solidarity among them was one of the few comforts in an existence marked by violence and uncertainty. Types of gladiators, classes, weaponry, and combat techniques. The diversity of gladiators in the Roman arenas was impressive, reflecting a wide range of classes, weaponry, and combat techniques. Each type of gladiator brought their own specialization, contributing to the complexity and spectacle of the fights. Understanding these differences is key to appreciating the intricate choreography of gladiatorial battles. The murmillos were one of the most popular classes, recognized by their crested helmets and large shields. Armed with a short sword called a gladius, murmillos specialized in close combat, using their shields for both defense and attack. Their battles were a display of brute strength and endurance. In contrast, the retiarii fought with a net and a trident, adopting a more agile and strategic approach. Without heavy armor, retiarii relied on speed and skill to entangle and disarm their opponents. Their fights were marked by tension and anticipation, with the audience waiting for the moment the net would wrap around the adversary. The Thraces, or Thracians, used a curved sword called a sicca and carried a small rectangular shield. Known for their agility, Thraces employed tactics of quick attacks and evasion. Their armor, consisting of a helmet with a visor and leg guards, allowed for great mobility, making them unpredictable opponents. Another notable group were the spectators, whose armor was designed specifically to combat retiarii. With smooth helmets and no protrusions to prevent the net from catching, spectators were formidable gladiators, equipped with a short sword and a large shield. Battles between spectators and retiarii were among the most eagerly anticipated in the arenas, exemplifying the eternal struggle between strength and agility. In addition to these main classes, there were many other types of gladiators, each with their own weapons and fighting styles. Hoplomachii and provocators, for example, brought their own specializations and armaments, adding to the variety and unpredictability of the fights. This diversity not only heightened the spectacle but also allowed gladiators to maximize their individual skills. Finally, the organization of the fights took these differences into account, creating duels that captured the public's imagination. The arenas transformed into battlefields where strategy, skill, and strength met in a deadly dance. Each fight was a story in itself, with gladiators playing roles that made them heroes or martyrs in a continuous drama that fascinated Rome. The combat day, ritual and spectacle in the arena. The day of combat in the Roman arenas was a highly significant event, meticulously orchestrated to maximize drama and excitement. From dawn, the city buzzed with anticipation as citizens from all social classes converged on the imposing amphitheaters. The atmosphere was electrifying, filled with the expectation of the spectacle about to unfold. The arrival of the gladiators at the arena was a moment of great ceremony. Led in processions, they were presented to the public, their armor gleaming under the sun. Their expressions serious, reflecting the gravity of what was to come. This presentation ritual not only exalted the gladiators, but also heightened the tension and suspense, preparing the audience for the imminent action. Before the main fights, a series of preliminaries was held to entertain the crowd. These events could include wild animal hunts, executions of criminals, and even mock naval battles in specially designed arenas. Each element of the spectacle was meticulously planned to keep the audience engaged and excited. When it was time for the gladiator combats, the arena transformed into a stage of controlled violence. The duels were accompanied by narrators who explained the actions and backgrounds of the fighters, creating a narrative around each battle. Music and sound effects contributed to the atmosphere, amplifying every blow and scream, making the experience visceral for everyone present. The combats were intensely physical and often fatal. The skill, strength, and courage of the gladiators were tested as they fought not only for their lives, but also for the approval of the public and patrons. The crowd, in a frenzy of emotion, cheered for impressive strikes and movements, influencing the course of the duels with their roar. The most dramatic moment of any combat was the final decision on the fate of the defeated gladiator. The editor, usually a high-ranking figure, had the power of life or death, influenced by the signals from the public. A thumbs up meant mercy, while a thumbs down sealed the loser's fate. This final ritual concluded the narrative of the combat, leaving a lasting impression on the spectators. Finally, the surviving gladiators were hailed as heroes, carried out of the arena amid the cheers of the crowd. For those who triumphed, victory brought not only survival but also fame and the possibility of one day gaining freedom. Each combat left an indelible mark, both on the gladiators and the audience, perpetuating the legend of the Roman arenas. Life outside the arena. Relationships, hopes, and fears. Outside the arenas, the life of gladiators was marked by a strict routine, but also by moments of relative normalcy. Although many were slaves or prisoners, their lives were not limited to just training and combat. Within the walls of the ludus, they developed relationships, built friendships, and in some cases, even found love. Gladiators lived in communal quarters, sharing spaces with their fellow warriors. This enforced proximity created an environment of camaraderie, where bonds between the men were strengthened by their mutual need for support and solidarity. Friendship among gladiators was often the only source of comfort and security in a world dominated by violence. In addition to friendships, some gladiators had the opportunity to start families. Although rare, there were instances of gladiators marrying and having children, even while living under the constant threat of death. These relationships provided a glimpse of normalcy and hope, giving gladiators an additional reason to fight and survive. Despite these small joys, life outside the arena was also permeated with fear and uncertainty. At any moment, a gladiator could be called to fight, and the outcome of each combat was unpredictable. This constant state of alert deeply affected the gladiators' psyche, as they learned to live with the awareness of their mortality. In addition to the fear of death, gladiators also faced the challenge of maintaining physical and mental integrity. Combat wounds were common and often resulted in permanent disabilities. Recovering from these injuries required willpower and resilience, and the pressure to return to the arena as soon as possible was intense. Finally, there was a hope that motivated many gladiators: the possibility of freedom. In rare cases, gladiators who demonstrated exceptional skill and bravery could earn their freedom through the grant of a ludus, a symbolic wooden sword. This prospect of liberation offered a light at the end of the tunnel, encouraging gladiators to overcome challenges and fight with all their might. The culture of the arenas: politics, religion, and entertainment. Roman arenas were more than just combat venues. They were centers of culture, politics, and religion, playing a crucial role in Roman society. The staging of gladiatorial games was intrinsically linked to power structures and religious practices, reflecting and influencing public life in Rome. Politically, gladiatorial games were a powerful tool for Roman leaders. Emperors and politicians used the games to gain public favor, offering grand spectacles as a way to win popular support. These events were opportunities to demonstrate generosity and power, solidifying leaders' positions in the political arena. Religiously, gladiatorial fights had profound significance. The games were often dedicated to Roman gods, and death in the arena was seen as a sacrifice to appease the deities. These religious ceremonies integrated gladiatorial games into Rome's sacred calendar, making them an essential part of the festivals and religious rituals. Additionally, the arenas served as centers of entertainment. For the Roman people, watching the combats was a way to escape the hardships of daily life and immerse themselves in a world of excitement and adrenaline. The thrill of the fights, the tension of the duels, and the grandeur of the ceremonies created a spectacle that captivated everyone's imagination. The culture of the arenas also reflected the complexity of Roman social norms. Although gladiators were viewed as figures of low status, their skills and bravery earned them a certain level of admiration and respect. This paradox contributed to the public's fascination with gladiators, who were both heroes and outcasts. Besides the combats, the arenas were also stages for other forms of entertainment, such as chariot races and theatrical performances. These activities complemented the gladiatorial games, creating a continuous festive environment that attracted large crowds. The variety of spectacles offered something for everyone, ensuring that the arenas remained vibrant centers of cultural life. Ultimately, the culture of the arenas was a manifestation of the Roman spirit, celebrating strength, courage, and skill. The gladiators, as the protagonists of these spectacles, embodied these values, becoming living symbols of the grandeur and brutality of the Roman Empire. Through the arenas, Rome showcased its glory and power, reaffirming its supremacy in the ancient world. Famous gladiators, heroes, and immortal legends. Throughout Roman history, some gladiators stood out and became true legends, with their deeds echoing through the centuries. These men, through their skills and courage, achieved a near-mythical status, transforming themselves into immortal heroes of the arena. One of the most famous gladiators was Spartacus, a Thracian who led one of the greatest slave revolts in Roman history. Originally captured and trained as a gladiator, Spartacus escaped and united thousands of slaves in a fight against Roman oppression. His rebellion, though eventually defeated, left an indelible mark on history, symbolizing the struggle for freedom against tyranny. Another legendary gladiator was Crixus, a Gaul who fought alongside Spartacus. Known for his strength and bravery, Crixus became a central figure in the slave revolt. His heroic death in battle against Roman forces only elevated his legendary status, cementing his name as a symbol of resistance and courage. Commodus, the Roman emperor who saw himself as a gladiator, is another notable figure. Although he was not a traditional gladiator, Commodus participated in fights in the arena, feeding his ego and crafting an image of himself as an invincible fighter. His participation in the games was an expression of the absolute power he believed he possessed, and his death marked a dramatic end to his controversial reign. Flamma, a Syrian gladiator, was renowned for his longevity and success in the arena. Winner of 34 fights, Flamma repeatedly refused freedom, choosing to continue fighting and solidifying his fame. His skill and determination made him a living legend, and his story highlights the complex relationship between gladiators and the arena. Carpophorus was another renowned gladiator, known for his battles against wild animals. A specialist in venations, hunts, Carpophorus faced beasts like lions and bears, demonstrating extraordinary courage and skill. His ability to dominate these fierce creatures made him an icon of bravery and dexterity. These gladiators, among many others, left a lasting legacy. Their stories, filled with heroic feats and tragic endings, captured the imagination of both their contemporaries and future generations. They became symbols of struggle, resistance, and the indomitable will to survive, turning the arena into a stage for immortal legends. Decline and legacy, the end of the arenas and the immortality of the gladiators. Over time, the fate of the Roman arenas and gladiators changed. Various factors contributed to the decline of the gladiatorial games, from political and economic shifts to cultural and religious transformations. However, the legacy of the gladiators continued to endure, leaving a profound mark on history and culture. The decline began in the 4th century when Christianity gained strength in the Roman Empire. The new religion condemned gladiatorial fights as barbaric and contrary to Christian principles of compassion and respect for human life. Christian emperors, such as Constantine and Theodosius, issued decrees that restricted and eventually prohibited the games, marking the beginning of the end for the arenas. In addition to religious influences, the Roman economy also changed, making gladiatorial games less viable. Maintaining the arenas and funding the spectacles became an expensive task, especially as the empire faced financial crises. Without the necessary financial support, many ludus, training schools, closed their doors, and gladiators were forced to find new means of livelihood. Politically, the weakening of central power and barbarian invasions contributed to the disintegration of the infrastructures that supported the games. As the empire fragmented, maintaining the arenas and organizing the spectacles became increasingly difficult, leading to the gradual disappearance of gladiatorial contests. Despite the end of the arenas, the legacy of the gladiators continued to inspire generations. Their stories have been preserved in historical writings, works of art, and more recently, in films and literature. The fascination with gladiators and their epic battles continues to captivate the imagination, turning them into timeless cultural icons. Gladiators also left an indelible mark on popular culture. Films like Spartacus and Gladiator have revived interest in the subject, presenting modern audiences with the struggles and dramas of the arena. These portrayals, though often romanticized, keep the memory of the gladiators alive, highlighting their courage and resilience. Ultimately, the gladiators and Roman arenas symbolize the complexity of human nature. The quest for glory, the struggle for survival, and the desire to transcend one's circumstances. Even after the end of the games, the immortality of the gladiators endures, reminding us of a time when the arena was the stage for heroes and legends.